Hey everyone, welcome to the Cobwebs YouTube channel where we are dusting off classic cinema. My name is Daniel Epler, and today we're going to be talking about Warner Archive. I absolutely love Warner Archive, and we'll probably be talking about them quite a bit over the life of this channel, and I certainly hope that they are a label that's going to be here for a long, long time. That seems to be a little bit up in the air right now, but don't panic, because right now we're talking about two fairly recent releases from them, two MGM musicals from the 1940s. We're going to be talking about The Pirate and Good News. These are, let's get that a little bit better in the frame. These are two movies that came out just within a year of each other back in the 1940s, but the Blu-rays came out just within a couple of months of each other very recently. Good News is from January of this year, and The Pirate came out in November. And these are two releases that I'm pretty excited about after watching them. Very excited to tell you guys about the movies. Let's go ahead and go in chronological order. Let's start with Good News, which came out in 1947, directed by Charles Walters. So Good News is a college set musical, which is really the reason that I bought it. I did blind buy this movie in the recent 4 for $44 sale, and I just really like college set movies. I'm fairly fresh out of college myself, with just within the past few years, and I have a lot of good memories from college. I really enjoyed my time there, so I do enjoy a good college movie. This one is starring Peter Lawford and June Allison. June Allison is not somebody that I was really familiar with, but she was apparently a pretty big contract star with MGM back in the 40s and 50s. Peter Lawford, of course, you know, he was part of the Rat Pack and was in a whole lot of movies. I've seen him fairly recently in some stuff as sort of the other man, or rather like the second male lead in stuff like Easter Parade and an Ernst Lubitsch movie called Clooney Brown. But Good News is about a football star played by Peter Lawford, and then June Allison's sort of the nerdy girl. Now, this very glamorous girl just came to the school, and she's very much after a man with wealth, but she's very beautiful, extremely self-obsessed. And Peter Lawford, as the football star, as the most popular man on campus, he sort of feels like he has to romance this very glamorous new popular girl, and is fairly unsuccessful about it for a while, but ends up kind of falling for the nerdy girl played by June Allison. I know she's so beautiful, she's so charming, but she works at a library, so we're supposed to accept she's the nerdy girl. Whatever, it's musical logic, I'll go along with it. And complications arise mostly because Peter Lawford is an idiot and he can't decide what he wants, and that's mainly where all the drama comes from. But I really enjoyed this movie. So there are a lot of different kinds of movie musicals, and this one definitely feels like a stage musical. And what I mean by that is the songs really push the plot forward, and sometimes the lyrics are even conversational. And I really like musicals like that because, you know, there are a lot of old musicals, particularly like from this period, where the plot pauses in order to have a musical number. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that the musical number has nothing to do with the plot. You know, it's not always like the triplets number in The Bandwagon. Shout out to the reels out there who know what the triplets number in The Bandwagon is. In fact, leave a comment if you have seen that atrocity. I love that movie, but good Lord, that number, that is something else. But so they're about an aspect of the plot, but the song isn't moving the plot forward. It's just like, this is about this one little thing. Good News has a lot of songs that do move the plot forward, that are conversational, and I really enjoy that. Peter Lawford is not a good singer. I don't really know why they cast him. I'm sure there were better options, but he's charming enough. And honestly, by his second song, I didn't really care anymore. It almost made it feel more like a stage musical, in that, like, this is the guy we could get, you know. And a lot of times, especially in like community theater, high school theater, college theater, you have a less than great male star because he's the one you could get. And that's kind of how this feels. Mel Torme is also in this, who you might know as a 1940s, 1950s singer, even past that, actually. He had a long career. He has like maybe 1 or 2 lines, but he has a couple of songs. And, you know, back in these days, if you have a big Mel Torme crush, you can't just YouTube a video of him singing. Like, you got to go see Good News and watch Mel Torme sing. And that's kind of how it feels. But there are a lot of songs in this I really enjoy. Lucky in Love is a great number that is at a college party, and the camera moves throughout the party to different couples as they're singing different parts of this song. And that's a great number. You know, it may feel like a stage musical in certain ways, but it is cinematic, and the camera moves beautifully, and the movie is gorgeous looking, like so colorful, such great costumes. I just really fell for Good News. It's just super charming. I enjoy the absolute hell out of it. There's even some really great dancing in it. Like there's one number in a soda fountain, a diner, or whatever you want to call it. You know, I have to admit, it is the subject of the number is absolute textbook cultural appropriation. You know, it is the 1940s. You have to put up with some of that stuff sometimes in old movies, but the dancing in that number is staggering. Like amazing dance numbers in this that I really enjoyed. So Good News absolutely gets a Cobwebs recommend. And it's actually got a few special features. Warner Archive is not always known for their special features, but there's an entire musical number that was deleted from the movie. And it's not often you can get deleted scenes in some of these old movies, but you got a deleted scene. It's not a work print or anything. It's the full number. It looks like it came from like an old DVD because it's cropped into 4:3 aspect ratio. Not great quality, but it is cool to see a completely different musical number that is in the movie. You get a couple of excerpts from the 1930 version of this movie. This is based on a Broadway play. This is not the first time that play was brought to the screen. It was in 1930. Most of the elements of that movie exist just as like in a museum for preservation, something like that. But actually there's an entire color finale to that 1930 version that is completely lost. No part of that still exists. But you can see a couple of scenes from this movie, from the 1930 version on this Blu-ray. That's very cool to see. There is an MGM radio promo interview with June Allison. Some of these Warner Archive discs, they do have clips from old radio, and that's a lot of fun to watch. And there is also a theatrical trailer. So some pretty cool special features on here. Not a commentary or anything super fancy like that, but some pretty cool stuff. You can take a look at the back right there. There's Peter Lawford surrounded by many of the lovely ladies in the film. You can go ahead and see the disc right there. This is, when I first started watching this movie, I thought maybe this is going to be a little bit too corny, but I don't think it is. I mean, it is corny, but not too much for me. It felt like watching a not great, but decent and fun stage musical, but it happened to be in a beautiful looking film, and I really enjoyed it. So that gets a recommend. Next up, we're going to be talking about The Pirate. There we go. Starring Gene Kelly and Judy Garland. Okay, so The Pirate has a pretty wild plot. Let's get into it. This movie is about a woman who lives in Spain during sometime in the 1800s, during the heyday of the pirates. And she lives a pretty boring life with her aunt and uncle. And she is, against her will, engaged to marry the mayor of the town, who's older and a little bit more round around the waist, if you know what I mean. And she doesn't want to marry him, but she doesn't freak out about it or anything. Like, she knows how this culture is. She knows her duty, and she's like, okay, fine. But she really wants adventure, and she's really infatuated with this idea of this very famous pirate named Makoko. And she's never met Makoko, but the idea of being captured by a pirate and then having some kind of wild romance around the seven seas is something that just sounds really, really fun to her, but it only exists in her daydreams. Meanwhile, an entertainer comes to town. They always call him an actor, but he's very much like vaudeville. This is a vaudevillian-like entertainer played by Gene Kelly, who comes into town for a reason we don't really fully understand, except the fact that it's Judy Garland and she's beautiful and awesome. He's instantly in love with Judy Garland, and she will have nothing to do with him, partly because she's engaged. But he figures out by putting her under hypnosis during his act, because that's part of his act, and it feels very unethical. But he finds out through that she is in love with this pirate Makoko, and he endeavors to pretend to be Makoko in order to win her heart. I don't know what the end game of this for him was. Like, she is going to figure it out when you don't have a ship to take her back to, but anyway, he starts living as this pirate in this town. Everyone's afraid of him. They eventually want to hang him, because of course they do. It just has a really crazy plot, but I can't deny I was a little bit disappointed by it, because it's a Gene Kelly musical called The Pirate. And I thought he was going to be a pirate. I thought this was actually going to be a seafaring adventure film. It's sort of like the musical version of Captain Blood. That is not what this is. It is entirely bound to this small village. And the movie itself is entirely bound to a soundstage. Now, a lot of movies from this period are bound at soundstages. We all know this. Location shooting became much more common a little bit later in filmmaking, even though it did happen in the 1940s, but not all the time. Not a whole lot. But this movie is just more obviously bound to soundstage than almost anything I've ever seen. Absolutely nothing looks real. It's beautiful, beautiful sets, and I dig it. It's cool. but it does take something away from something is lost in this movie, and that no environment they're ever in looks authentic. It always looks like it's in an indoor soundstage. It's directed by Vincent Minnelli, who musical fans will know. He directed a lot of very famous MGM musicals, like The Bandwagon, which I just mentioned a little bit earlier, An American in Paris, also with Gene Kelly, Meet Me in St. Louis with Judy Garland. In fact, he was married to Judy Garland at the time that they made this movie. So he is a huge name. This movie was a colossal flop at the time. Gene Kelly said, I learned some things from the special features of this, which we'll get into. He said audiences didn't want to see me with a mustache and didn't want to see Judy Garland sophisticated, because this was her first movie where she's in no way a child. This is not Dorothy. She is very much an adult. And this is the first time that she really did that on screen. And maybe audiences were thrown off by it. Or maybe they wanted the musical version of Captain Blood, which is what I wanted. I enjoyed the movie. It is fun. It has a wacky plot that definitely keeps you interested. It has original songs by Cole Porter. None of them were great to me. And I like show tunes and I like music from old musicals and things like that, but I didn't find a single song in this all that great. The most famous one is called Be a Clown, which Singing in the Rain famously ripped off for Make 'Em Laugh. It's like this almost the same song. But what makes the Singing in the Rain number great is Donald O'Connor, honestly. And the version in this movie is just not half as good as that, even though I give Cole Porter credit for he's the one that did the original version. The best song in the number is rather a ballet. There is a pirate ballet, which is a fantasy sequence of Gene Kelly as a pirate, and it's this epic, crazy dance number. The movie utilizes a lot of ballet and not tap dance because Gene Kelly knew that tap dancing didn't exist at this point in history, so he kept it completely out. And there's a lot of really beautiful, incredible ballet. It's very intense. Gene Kelly is like this ruthless pirate through dance, and it's really, really cool to see. But yeah, for the actual songs, didn't find any of them entirely memorable. The romance, it really only makes sense if you think, well, it's Judy Garland and Gene Kelly. They're beautiful and charming. Of course they'd fall in love. And that's the only way that it works. Nothing else about it quite makes sense. But I found it fun enough. Not a great movie, not a movie I love. There's a lot of Gene Kelly movies I would prefer to this, but The Pirate is actually a really cool release because unlike most Warner Archive Blu-rays, a lot of great special features. This is actually kind of a stacked release, very stacked if you grade on the curve of normal for Warner Archive. So first of all, there's a commentary by historian John Frick, and I didn't get a chance to listen to the entire thing. I listened to a good chunk of it, and it's not a commentary that you would describe as like fun and super entertaining, but it's very educational, and I learned a lot of cool things. This guy really knows his stuff. There's an entire making of featurette. It's about 18 minutes long. Really learned a lot from that. A lot of cool stuff about the movie's troubled production and the movie being a flop when it came out and sort of why they made the decisions they did. It's very complimentary. The people in the documentary really love the movie, but are realistic about why it was not a big hit at the time. There is a vintage comedy short, live action comedy short that's really fun. There is a Tom and Jerry cartoon. I just love Warner Archive's commitment to vintage cartoons. I mean, most especially with the Tex Avery collections and the Popeye collections. But their Blu-rays very often have a comedy short attached that you can watch to open up the movie like it would be if you screened it back in the 1940s. And I love that. This is a fun Tom and Jerry cartoon. It's the Gone Fishin' one, which is a pretty famous one. You may have seen it before. And then there are some audio only different versions of the songs, which are kind of interesting. There are guide track versions of the songs that people recorded to help out Gene Kelly and Judy Garland learn the songs. That's kind of interesting. There are more radio interviews, promotional radio interviews, one with Gene Kelly and one with Judy Garland, which are very, very cool. And then you got the theatrical trailer. So an excellent release in terms of both the transfer. I mean, both of these movies look absolutely stunning, and both of them have more special features than are normal for Warner Archive. So fans of classic MGM musicals should be very, very happy. I certainly am. I don't love The Pirate. I gave it a 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, but good news, I give a 3.5, which I might even bump with future watches because I could see this being a comfort watch. Not a lot of plot there, but just so fun and so sweet. So yeah, these are Warner Archive Blu-rays that you can pick up now. I really enjoyed them both. If you enjoyed this and you enjoy hearing coverage on classic musicals, let me know because I would definitely love to do more in the future. And thank you so much for watching. I would definitely ask that you give us a like, give us a subscribe. We got a lot of other cool classic film coverage coming in the future. And hey guys, thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.